Hi, I'm Sandra. Today I'm reading a story from a local writer, Powell River writer, who's quite prolific, Bev Falconer, in writing about her family stories, but also history of the town site of Powell River. So this story Bev wrote quite a few years ago, and it takes place in 1948 when she went to school at Brooks High School here in Powell River. It's called Pride Before the Fall by Beverley Falconer. It was 1948, our last year of high school, and I was particularly enjoying biology class. Mr. Davidson was our teacher. We called him Slim amongst ourselves, although he wasn't. In many of our classes, we read straight from our textbooks, but not with Mr. Davidson. His eyes lit up when he thought of things to kindle our interest. So when he discovered that my friend Joe's dad had caught a dogfish and then buried it in the garden for fertilizer, Mr. Davidson got permission to dig it up. He hung it up between the Brooks Junior and Senior High School buildings and held our class out there. Mr. Davidson carved the dogfish, and together we identified fins, organs, and cartilage. He told us the milky substance dripping from the carcass was sperm. Word spread about our unconventional class, and parents were talking. Some were pretty upset about the word sperm being mentioned at school. "I hear Mr. Davidson was teaching you about dogfish," my mom commented the next day. "Yeah, it was really interesting, and we got to have our class outside." "And what did he show you?" Mom asked. "Well, he slit the dogfish open like Dad does when he cleans our trout, except it was a heck of a lot bigger. A dogfish is actually a shark. And you know how fish lay eggs? Well, most sharks don't. Their babies are already formed when they're born, like little sharks." And he showed us the dogfish bones, which aren't really bones because they're made of cartilage. Really interesting, hey? "Very interesting," Mom agreed. Anyway, I guess the parents that were concerned about our class got over it because we didn't hear any more about it. One day, Mr. Davidson announced, "Today we are going to learn about vestigial organs and behaviors. Anyone know what vestigial means?" There was silence. We glanced nervously at each other and shook our heads. Was this going to be a class on the birds and bees? He wouldn't tell us that stuff with boys in the same class, would he? What a relief to find out that vestigial means losing an organ or function through evolution. Our tailbone, for example, is what's left of a lost tail. "The muscles attached to the ears of most monkeys are well developed," Mr. Davidson went on to explain. "They can move their ears around to hear possible threats. These muscles are vestigial in humans, although it may be possible to regain this movement with practice." I was spellbound. Wouldn't that be something to wiggle my ears? This became my goal for the year. I spent ages at the mirror, squinting and straining, trying to move my ears. Nothing happened. Then, one day, I felt those special muscles connected to my ears, and I made them move. I was so proud of my accomplishment. Later, I walked by a group of boys on the school grounds. "Joe says you can wiggle your ears," one of them said. "Yeah," I acknowledged. "I doubt it," he said. "Let's see then." I demonstrated my amazing talent. "Humph, bet you can't do this," said another, raising one eyebrow. I couldn't. They continued with challenges. Bend thumb down to touch your forearm. Touch tip of nose with your tongue, bend only top joint of your finger. I was keeping up with them. Then touch your elbows behind your back. I energetically stretched back, realizing too late that I had fallen into their trap. There I stood like a floozy flaunting herself at the figurehead of a galleon. My face burned as I suffered their smirks and chants of hubba, hubba, hubba. I felt as if everyone for miles around had seen what a fool I had made of myself. I could have died, absolutely died, and I could have killed those rats as well. I glared at them and fled. I felt ashamed and angry and wanted to be alone, so I stayed home and read. My book, A Girl of the Limberlost by Jean Stratton Porter, was an old-fashioned story, but it appealed to me because, like me, Elnora loved being in the bush, discovering wildflowers, birds, and butterflies. She was a dedicated student struggling to earn enough money to attend high school. She strived to be noble. Elnora seemed so much more mature than I. It was unimaginable that she would waste days learning to wiggle her ears. I decided to grow up and make better use of my time. That was a story from my dear friend Beverley Falconer, prolific memoir writer. Pride Before the Fall. Thank you for listening and have a good rest of the day.